Proportional Response. Book 1, Chapter 25, Part 6, Flashes of Combat. Hannibal tried to stand his ground after declaring that he intended to stay and wait for Henry. The soldier who had him by the arm spoke, even as they moved. Ambassador Archer is a human, and our orders are to consider him a high-ranking combatant, for all intents and purposes. The human gave him an odd look, and spoke in tones that chilled his heart. Ambassador Archer's job has been accomplished, and he knows it. His survival is no longer any more important to the plan than that of any other high-level military officer. We will be trying and trying hard to get him out of here alive, but he is more concerned with the mission, which is getting all of you, especially Duke Felderin, off this planet alive and free. The man fixed him with a level stare. And sir, I will tell you that he values your life more than his own and wants you safely away from this as soon as possible. That said, he has made it clear to all of us that we are not to do anything, as he put it, stupidly heroic or risky to ensure his survival. Hannibal nearly fainted. Henry may not come back from this, The man shook him slightly. The ambassador did not, however, make that statement an order. So, I promise you, if you will get your shiny blue butt on that shuttle, I will, personally, do anything and everything in my power to make sure he gets off this rock alive, and I promise you that most of the other men here will too. Henry is a good man. No, honestly, he is a great man, and humanity has been lucky to have him. If he looked at all of us and said we needed to follow him into hell, we'd shove him to the middle of the pack and ask him which way to go. That said, sir, you are more important to his life's work than he is, so get on that shuttle. Hannibal gave the man an angry look. You humans are not the only ones lucky to have him. We all are, and don't you forget it. Now, you can quit trying to break my arm. I'll go. Talil, the Ruxa ambassador, had never considered himself a coward. The running chaos of this insanity had him scared to the bone, however, and he found it increasingly difficult to push the fear down and act. He pulled a pulse pistol off a dead Zoltan officer and managed to take a few good shots, but now found his hands had begun to shake too much. The sounds of skirmishes kept growing louder and closer, and the sight of dead humans, dead, began to overwhelm him. They made another turn, and he felt his feet move faster, as if of their own accord, as he realized they were, finally, headed directly towards the human embassy. He had to force himself to slow his pace as he nearly ran past the lead of his human escort. The other two ambassadors with him chattered in fear and had to be helped along. They came to another intersection, and the human held up a hand, then frantically backpedaled. 4 Daltons shot out of the right side of the intersection, turned, and brought their weapons to bear, or tried to. The humans with him opened up with a small barrage of fire, and all 4 lizards began to leak green. 2 of his men fired as well, but not as quickly as the humans. Still, they managed to hit one of the Zoltans. The lizard had already died by the time the pulse fire hit him, but it still hit him before he fell. Talil felt that counted for something. Then another double squad of Zoltans, probably attracted by the gunfire, came in at an intersection further down and turned towards them. The humans and his own Ruxa opened fire again, but didn't have the advantage of surprise this time. Darling, remind the children I love them, and let them know I died well. He'd been flattened against the wall by one of his men, and watched another go down under the hail of pulse fire. The humans took hits too, but kept firing. Talil leaned his head against the wall and braced himself to. Shots rang out from somewhere, and several of the Zoltans went down. Then came the sound of pounding boots, and a dozen humans, with the human ambassador in the lead, crashed right through the Zoltan squads, bowling several of them over. Even from the distance of nearly a dozen yards, Talil heard Zoltan bones snap. The human ambassador kept running, screaming something Talil's translator had trouble with about catching a running spice pastry. Carthan listened with half an ear to the comms officers detailing shuttle movements. The captain had assigned him to watching the Zoltan formation and to let her know when they broke from their fake Penigra formation into one that the Zoltan actually used. But everyone seemed to be keeping track of the shuttles. Those shuttles are our real mission, and we all know it. They are also going to be the primary target for that Sultan fleet. Those may be Sultan crews on ships with Sultan tech profiles. But we are the ones with our backs to a planet trying to screen highly vulnerable ships. A fighting ground-to-orbit retreat is one of the worst tactical positions to be in. And here we are. He looked over his plot again, at the Admiral's formation at the projected estimations of what they expected the enemy to do, and pushed the ball of fear that welled up inside of him down as hard as he knew how. I agree with the highest order projection, and I'm betting the Admiral does too, looking at our formation. It is also pretty clear, looking at our formation and hearing the orders being given the returning shuttles, that the Admiral is planning on loading all of those shuttles onto as few of the ships as possible, and using the rest of us as extra shielding. This is going to be ugly. Unless, of course, my captain can pull off the minor miracle that the Admiral has set us up for. He thought about the shuttles in his shuttle bay, the only ones not launched to pull the precious living cargo off the planet's surface so that his ship could stay in stealth mode, and hardened his resolve. Kaz had tried putting his foot down and pulling rank. That hadn't worked, so he'd told the other two ambassadors with him to run as fast as they could for the human embassy and took off running in another direction. His human guards had responded with anger and speed, but not quite enough speed. He'd broken free of them and forced a few of them to follow him while the rest kept perimeter around the other ambassadors he'd been with. He'd run the opposite direction of the fighting he could hear, but now he began to doubt his choice. They'd run straight into a force of Zoltans who had no one else to fight, and recognized him as a priority target. Another pulse rifle blast tore plaster off the corner in front of him, so he ducked around and returned fire with his pistol. A few Zoltans had started to advance up the corridor, and he managed to take one down before the others ducked around a convenient corner. Gotta keep him honest. His guards had given up trying to keep him out of the fight, but elicited a promise to let them be in charge. He didn't even argue that point. They had the comms gear and knew the tactical situation better than him. All of my time spent commanding in combat, and now I'm basically a grunt with a pistol. He expected the irony to be amusing. Later, a hand motion from one of his three humans, and he moved, ducking down another corridor and through a room. They came up behind three Daltons and fired before the lizards even registered their presence. Kaz holstered his pistol and grabbed one of these Zoltan rifles. One of his handlers got a panicked look and tried to stop him, but he ignored the man. His own hands moved almost of their own accord, disabling the Zoltan-only lockout with booby trap on the weapon and rendering it safe to use. He clicked the safety off, smiled at the look of grudging respect on the human's face, and nodded for them to advance. The man motioned him down, and they huddled behind a counter while the sergeant conferred with command. He wondered, again, how Henry fared. He'd seen Henry at one point during the running firefight and started to try and join forces, but his guards had hauled him the other way while yelling at him about clumping high-value targets. He expected to catch grief from Golna over that one if she found out. The sergeant looked at him and spoke.
The GX have positively identified you, and no, you are engaging them rather than making your way directly to escape, and are deploying to try and hit us with a large enough force to take you. Chasing you and Henry has kept them from focusing their fire, but Control is telling me that they have almost everyone off. So, mission accomplished, and it is time for you to come in. They are telling me we have a fairly clear line to get you to our embassy, but we're going to have to run the whole way. Are you up for it?
A handful of witty and slightly offended replies came to mind, but he checked himself. He was breathing harder than these humans, and the man could hardly be expected to know his capabilities. He contented himself with a nod and a wry smile. Then he learned a few things about how fast humans could run. Funth pressed her back against the outer wall of the voter assembly building. I thought I'd never see the skies of our homeworld again, and here I am assaulting the seat of the Republic government. She looked around for a sapper and found two of them already coming at a run with a breaching charge. Another look at her lines had her screaming and motioning for some of the men who stood gawking with greedy smiles at the sappers to shore up the western line. They snapped to obey, and she snarled to herself, "Oh, for a team of men like the ones on that hunting planet with me. We are in the middle of a firefight, and these idiots just let their guards down to watch the explosion." The sappers ran up to the wall and set the charge right next to her. She motioned for them to move down the wall a ways, to the middle of the break in the enemy line she'd managed to push through, but they shook their heads and started babbling about structure and engineering jargon. She saw a breach about to form in the east line and pushed off the wall while screaming at the sappers to just get her a hole while she went to shore up her lines. "Won't do us any good to get into the building if we can't get the rest of our people in behind us."